out for a minute, 543-210. All right, here we go. Let's see. All right, we'll roll the show out in just a minute. Give people some time to get in. Jennifer Sampson's not well today. Sending you some peace, love, healing, comfort. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, there we go. It just pulled up. All right, give him a second. All right. Okay, we got sound. What's up, Jenny Hodges? Michael Fox going to be on middle of the month. Kate Lumley, Slavika, Diane McLaughlin's here. 9 people in the house. If these shows resonate with you, please share. That's how we stay above the Facebook algorithms until we can make a break to our own independent site. Hello, Monica Peterson, Harlan Orlando Burr, Nora Bouvier, Mary Kavork, Melissa Howe. All right. Kate Lumley says, love seeing you together. So fun. Yeah, we're going to have some fun today. This will be, this is our last show of the day. It's a special show. I got a nice message from our mutual friend, Maureen Moss. Let's see here. It says, hi, what a joy to see 2 wonderful ones, you and Todd, joining together to bring pure love to a new audience. Sending you both so much love today, whether I look forward to being with you both. All right. How do we get readings? We don't do readings on Soul Speaks 5D, 800 plus episodes. I don't know. That's just not our bag. Let's see. I'll share. Can you say what the talk's about? Well, Janie, you've been around. Hello, Karen Starr, Jackie Farrell, Roma, Kelly Duran. You've been around, Janie. You know, it's all spontaneous, imaginative, intuitive, and creative. So we're just going to get to know each other in front of everybody, which means we're all getting to know each other and getting to know our guest all at once. Let me just, okay, hang on one second. I got to get the internet going here in the house. Internet's on in the house. Okay. So let me just roll this out a little bit and try to bring a little bit of a formality to Soulogy. Now, our guest is very well known, very distinguished. A lot of the people that we bring on, they are just, you know, they're the 99.99%. Not that our guest is not, but he's a very accomplished artist, right? Many albums and singles. There's quite a few of them listed here. He's an international multi-award winning singer, songwriter, and composer. He writes conscious music to inspire and promote global love and kindness from within. His focus is nurturing self-worth within the listener. He's performed for the United Nations 3 times, and his music has been used to honor icons like Louise Hay. He serves the Starkey Hearing Foundation, helping to give hearing aids to those in need around the world. His song Diamond Light won the Honorable Mention Award from the USA International Songwriting Competition in 2013. And the album of the same name, the Top 10 Award by the London Free Press. His music is used in classrooms worldwide to help children understand the importance of self-love and self-kindness. He tours with his music and provides healing workshops around the globe, singing, speaking, and teaching. You can see all of the links for our guests. Welcome to Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence, Paul Luftenegger. Did I get it right?
Yeah, that's everyone always slows down on my name.
Well, once I get it down once, I'll be okay.
I always say Schwarzenegger, Luftenegger.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah,
pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. You've obviously been some of your. I think I saw some of the singles were as early as was it 2007?
So I really sort of started really being public in 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been in music all my life, but I sort of had put it on a back burner for a long time, let's just say. And then my father passed away, and I sort of, I was called to do what I do by the divine universe.
It has a way of getting us to that point, doesn't it?
It sure does.
But so you started coming out with your music in 2011. You've had some pretty good success with it. Now, did you have some type of, well, your father passed. Was that kind of an impetus to push you out there?
Yeah, that's exactly. So long story short, I've said this story so many times, so I've been reducing it down. But long story short, my father actually took his own life. So he was 56, and he actually, I will say this openly, he hung himself actually. And it was sort of a moment that was sort of like the darkest night of my soul, where I just basically just stopped caring about the world for a little while and went back inside of myself with quite frankly, Source. And God showed me every day what I needed to do to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, you have obviously a very deep connection to God, to infinite intelligence.
Yeah.
Does I'm just curious, with someone like you, does the universe come to you in different faces of the universe, divine essences, galactics, angelics, or does it come to you just as one vibration with many frequencies in it?
Great question. Everything that you just said is 100% how this happens for me. I always like to look as things are round, whole, and round energy has no beginning and no end. And I feel very much that I'm sort of in a round orb energy with many different sort of aspects of the divine. I'm sort of opening up. I always say I'm gay, first of all. So I have to come out of the closet twice in my life. One for being gay, the second for being incredibly spiritual. And it's been actually a little bit harder being this spiritual person than being gay, but being gay taught me what I needed to do to sort of open up a little bit more about coming out of the closet. So I will say, I've had a very interesting experience with God all my life. But I needed to sort of, I think, have a space where I sort of didn't understand God. And I started off, I was the kid that always went to psychics. I went to mediums. I was always seeking God as a child. And then for a big part of my sort of teenage years, I got really scared of the world, really sort of disturbed by not really understanding what fear really was. But I was in incredible fear for a long time. A lot of anxiety, a lot of sort of just confusion. And then when my dad died, I needed to do a complete rebirth and a reset. And I realized now, all these years later, I needed to get off of my path to help people get on their path. So I'm really an ascension guide is really what I would call myself. And I help people basically reach their highest self and manifest. And I have a very beautiful team on the other side. And many of the ascended masters that have been on our planet are sort of with me. Louise Hay's with me.
Oh, wow.
Wayne Dyer's with me. Sylvia Brown, going way back, is always.
I remember her. I don't remember the name of the books, but there was a series of books I remember.
So she's with me. Dr. Emoto's with me. And these people are all with me on the other side as my team. And what's sort of interesting as a medium, I'm a musical medium. But these people are always in my presence. And Louise,
I'm not sure if that's me or him that froze up. Oh, you're good. Did you hear what I said?
I heard you. Yeah.
You went totally blank. I mean, not blank. You froze. But you said that you're a musical medium.
Yep. And I'm very galactic.
Okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, the galactics. And quite frankly, I've seen one UFO. I wanted to just say this. I find diamonds. Mm-hmm. I am part of what I would call the Diamond Light Council. And I'm very specific about that.
Wow.
So I have a sort of an interesting, I have never met anyone like me out there personally. Yeah.
It's a cool mix. We're gonna dive right into it. Yeah.
Mm.
So let's start with a little bit of on the musical mediumship. I mean, I'm not a lot of people. Well, maybe some people do. They've been following Soulogy. I'm a writer, first and foremost. You know, I love poetry and I love prose, and I love to write what I call soul speaks and put them to music and then kind of speak them. And there is for me there during the really creative time when I was putting out 200 or 300 of them. It was like a musical. I've never heard that term, but it's like a musical mediumship. Now nobody was involved in it but me,
Yeah.
and but there was this space that I would get into, and and it kind of struck me what you said about the more recent contemporary spiritual leaders,
Mhm.
because what would happen is, you know, Prince or DJ Screw or Tupac or, you know, different transitioned musical geniuses would pop in and we would have, you know, of course I was in my own world, and it sounds very similar. Now, do you, for lack of a better word, do you summon um, when you write music? Do you summon anything, or do you how would you describe the space where you compose?
Well, one of the things, this is a common question people ask me when I'm interviewed is, what is your writing process? And
Mhm.
like any artist has to figure out what that is. So for me, my experience has been very clearly to go to God, source,
Yeah,
open up and bring through whatever is coming through. So every song is like giving birth to a new baby, is what I say.
yeah,
And you have to figure out how to do that. And every
yeah,
single one, just like every labor is a little different.
yeah,
But I've been very guided. Every single song is from God. I will be
yeah,
very clear in saying that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And it's conscious in the tonal vibrational intention,
Yeah,
because I think we need to start having some really big conversations about what I think music is. It's a divine, sacred inner technology. It's very
yeah,
old. It's our soul being free to express.
yeah,
It creates a total orb around us by what we vibrate with. Frequency and vibrational understanding is very important where we're at right now. And my
yeah,
job with God is to make sure people understand that we vibrate at a specific vibrational level. And when we listen or expose ourselves to anything that's not of high frequency in love or divine nature in love, it surrounds us.
yeah,
So I always like to say we need to clean out the inner space with divine, intentional, vibrational love.
yeah,
And when we do this, we actually clean up the gunk inside of our inner space. And my music is designed and it's very specific to help aid that process by self-love, self-worth, and the divine nature within.
yeah,
So it's the one thing I always say, music is the one thing that can get inside of us.
yeah. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that, you know, because I was I spent my first couple of years of awakening on the streets, and then I got my own place about a year after that,
Yeah.
and I was told, go put a studio in downstairs, and I said, well, what am I going to do, you know? And so I got some speakers, and I got the same type of communication that you're explaining right now, which was basically, I didn't even know what shadow work was at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had a lot of shadow, but there was something about taking the approach of creating this living, really living organism or consciousness with the sound, with the words, the whole mixture of all the frequencies that just cleansed me, you
Yeah.
know, and in hopes of cleansing others, like poetry, but more expanded because there was more frequencies involved. So I totally get what you're saying.
Beautiful.
Absolutely relate to it. Now, when you talk about Louise Hay, you talk about Wayne Dyer and the contemporary, the Sylvia Browns. Now, in this case, and I guess this would be more on your direct practitioner side as an ascension guide, did you call them in or did they just appear?
So the way that this sort of happened, and this I think is very common. I've done some one-on-one sessions with people from around the world. What people don't know about music that I love is that it brings people together. So I have sort of this beautiful sort of tapestry around the world of people that know me through their own seeking my music. So I've so many stories of friends becoming friends or people knowing people through my work. So what's happened more and more as I've sort of come out of the closet as who I really am.
Yeah, we're all coming out of the
Yeah,
closet.
we're all coming out. We're living extraordinary. I think we're on the planet with some of the most beautiful souls. Very old souls are here right now to handle what's going on. We know this.
Very true. Yes.
So what I know to be true and what's happened is I'm showing new layers more and more and more and more. I always say I'm kind of 8 years old right now on planet Earth, where I'm fully, I would say, awake. And what's sort of interesting about the way that people have shown up, like I'll just explain Louise Hay. There was once a time I didn't know who she was. This is a perfect example of when you ask that question, you know, who is Louise Hay? I remember a time where I couldn't have answered that. And the reality is my music, I mean, I went from not knowing her. She actually transitioned and died, actually transitioned listening to my music.
Wow.
Kind of wild. And what's sort of interesting is I'm very good friends with the person that took care of her for the last 15 years. And what's really interesting is I actually didn't ever get a chance to meet her, but my music was used for her last birthday on Earth. And everybody in the audience put their hand on their heart and listened to one of my songs. It's called My Heart, and it's all about self-love. And she was honored with that song being played for the full segment of the time she was on a stage. And what's really interesting is I wanted to meet her, but it didn't happen. And I was kind of upset at the time. But what's so cool, like 1 year later almost when she transitioned, I didn't know that my music that I gave her as a gift that day would be played while she was actually passing. So, and then afterwards, when she passed, she came to me very clear in my ear. And she's been with me really in a very unique way. And they've all been with me to teach me different kind of aspects of multidimensional reality, actually, and our multisensory being that we are. So we're all waking up to this multisensory being that we are, but we need to understand that we have to really understand it's a vibrational frequency of love. And until we increase our vibrational love frequency, we won't have the clean, clear process the way we will until we do the work to clean up the inside.
Yeah, of course, and yes.
Music's a big part of that.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you on that. It's a universal language, you know. And then in this, of course, in this realm, you can add other frequencies to it, like the visuals. You know, that's that to me is exciting. Just like this is exciting, rather than nothing wrong with the radio podcast, but you know, when you have the visual, it adds the light and the waves and the whole 9 yards, and the frequency of the consciousness you're sitting across from. So, yeah. Now, so you know, you talk about the point, the impetus of the beginning, I guess, or the resurgence of your transformation.
Yes.
With what happened with your father in the physical world. Now, in terms of accomplishment, when you know, you talk about that vibrational space, when you came out of that, and when you began this leg of it, especially being creative and being an artist and channeling as a conduit, like you said, it's all coming from there. You're just pushing it out. Did you struggle with finding that space and holding that space? In other words, what I'm trying to say, as you were trying to manifest and create, how long did it take you to get to the point where really you just needed to focus on the alignment of your heart and that self-love that you inject into your songs and into your work?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And the reality is, to understand this properly, I follow my heart 100%. So God gave me a mantra right after my dad died, and it was love, expanding love. And until we live with that mantra, we don't have the ability to understand that the universe works in 360 degrees, meaning in front of us, behind us, all around us, within us. So we have to listen. Human beings are not very good listeners, just saying. And we need to start understanding that to listen is to love.
Yeah.
So the reality is that when you listen, it's a vibrational understanding that we need to listen from our heart. So things will show up for us if we're listening.
Yeah.
And listening with all of our senses, not just our eyes, not just our ears, you know. So what happened for me is I I realized that I needed to listen to what was going on in 360 degrees. And that's one of the reasons why I like to point out I find diamonds. I always know when I'm going to find a diamond because I just know it. And I look down and it's always sort of just beneath my feet. And I mean this, I have 5 diamonds that I found, and I knew I was going to find them right before I did. But most people don't remember to even just look down.
Yeah.
And we're always sort of waiting for, things to just happen. And naturally, there's a process of listening, though. So when I was starting to do this work, someone suggested, I didn't have enough money to do all of my albums. I say this with humility. And at the beginning, one person said, have you heard of Kickstarter? If I didn't listen to her, I would never have done my second album, my real second album. And that's the song that was used for Louise's birthday. I would never have been able to record it unless I listened to someone tell me, do a Kickstarter. And I was really embarrassed to ask for money. I'll be very frank. I was very embarrassed because I just didn't have enough money to do what I needed to do properly with a proper producer. So I just decided to listen to her, which is, again, the universe. And I'm so grateful that I did, because it started me understanding that when I put people's energy into my music, it becomes so much more powerful to help people. And I've done this now as Kickstarter, not even as much as needing the help with the money as much as I really want people to commit to sort of cleaning money up. I feel money needs to be cleaned. And when you put it towards goodness, vibrational goodness, it actually, it is much more powerful than people realize.
Yes, it is.
To have a collective pool of money, using it for good, to help humanity. So my music, actually, to answer that question, I've just sort of listened to all of the things coming my way, including when people tell me something that I maybe wouldn't know unless someone was offering something to me as an advice,
Yeah. Yeah, because everything outside of you is the universe, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I love your description of the 360, because, and then even the comment about we have to listen from the heart with all senses.
Yeah.
And then and everything external is the universe talking to us, and yet the thing that's the loudest, which is another human hybrid soul right in front of us.
Yeah.
Talking to us is oddly enough probably the last thing we listen to, because we're trying to be listened to. But it also reminds me of that old adage: what goes around comes around. Yeah. And if you're listening and holding space, then that's exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, and what you put out comes back to you. This is the thing, that until you take responsibility for the energy you create, and this is the thing, you have to sort of turn everything into energy. And until you really take the commitment to do that, and I mean in every way. It doesn't mean you're perfect at it, but when you take responsibility for the energy you create, I can't be in relationships with anybody that doesn't take responsibility anymore. I won't do it.
Yeah.
And I Oprah Winfrey always kind of used to say, believe people when they show you who they are.
Yeah.
I do. I really do now. And I trust that with all of my, every fiber of my being, because I can't be around people that don't take responsibility for what they do. I really can't do it anymore.
I think that's becoming a more and more common trait of so many people, such as those here, is that, I don't know, I want to say personality, but the empath. Yeah. The road of the empath has gone from, totally being a doormat to saying, hey, I love you unconditionally, but no.
Yeah.
No.
And again, I think the big lesson too that I've learned is, don't take kindness for weakness. I'm incredibly strong. And these are the things that we as a community, and I just want to say, anyone listening to this, thank you for being here. I send you love. I want to just honor you for the fact that we are creating a whole new world together, and with the co-creative energies of responsibility. And I love that about our community around the world.
Yeah. When you said a whole new world, I thought you were going to start belting that song. So now I find it fascinating, though, that you've got these contemporary spiritual leaders, recently transitioned, recently disincarnated. Now, did you have prior to that, did you have the Saint Germains, the Merlins, the Yeshuas, or the Archangels, or
More the archangels for me. And in particular, the thing that's sort of interesting is when I was a kid, I used to always read the books on how to become psychic. Okay. I didn't understand this stuff as a kid. I just didn't get it. In our house, my parents would go away and our house would fill up with, I mean, thousands of beings. Okay. And I have to say, I was always just sort of freaked out by it. I was raised Catholic, so I was taught fear. You know, don't dabble with that stuff. Kind of was always sort of kind of taught to us. And that said, I realized when my father died, I just didn't have fear of that part of me. I grew up essentially to it. And the thing that's interesting in sort of understanding the psychic spectrum, we're all built the same way. We all have inner divine sacred technology. And what I understand about it now that is so interesting is we have to understand that my team always says that messages are lighter than a feather and lighter than that. So you have to understand they're not densities. So it's not like talking. We have a very dense sort of understanding of vibrational frequency, but when you actually tap into the other side, it's very light in the sense you have to sort of understand that it's light energy. So when you tune into it, you have to actually, your light quotient has to be a little bit lighter. So we need to, when I first woke up, I was shown from my team to reach inside of my inside and like a dial, literally turn up the frequency of love.
I was going to say, yeah.
Turn it up with your gut. And you have to reach deep inside yourself and turn it up. And ever since I did that, I have never really had the fear that I used to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good, another good description. I was going to say, you gotta change the dial, because that's kind of how I saw it when it happened to me. And they would say, you know, we're up here, you're down here, and so we're going to come down a little bit, but you got to come up. You know, so you have to. And the way you put it about the lightness, which also is reflective of the messages, because they come in like little blips. They're not like, you know, concrete, like a human talking to a human. They just this blip and like, did I see that? Did I hear that? Which is why so many of us questioned ourselves for so many years until we all came out and realized we're not crazy.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And I think what's really neat about the what I feel that happened for me is I went from my head to my heart. You almost have to almost, I know Dr. Delaney always says you have to almost decapitate your head. Because you do, in a way, have to reprogram your entire mind, because we've been so programmed in every way, shape, or form. So what we have to do is go to our heart, and actually the heart reprograms the mind with divine consciousness. And that's the big difference, because I think we get mixed up in our head with dualities. And dualities, as we know, of course, do loving things. That is just right. But I think the duality stuff, we've been so programmed with just what's right and wrong. We have to go from the head to the heart and just trust our heart's love. That really does reprogram the mind into the cosmic mind.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And what about the, you said you're very galactic. Can you give us a little bit of backdrop on that, as in terms of your connection and relationship?
First of all, I've always been obsessed with UFOs. All my life, I love looking. I think I always see the stars are always cascading an understanding of vibrations to us. I'm very much aware that every alignment whenever you have a chance, if the sky is clear, go out and stand under the stars and see their energy and feel their energy bathing you like an ocean. Yeah. That's one of the messages from my team. I feel I meant to say that right now too. The moon can draw any venom out of you. Let go of any venom to the moon. And the other thing with the galactics that are really important is that they're always present for us to help us. And I think the thing with myself, I had a meditation probably in about 2012. I went and signed a contract. I haven't shared this publicly, but I'm going to now. I was in a meditation and I signed a contract in front of, it was on a massive ship, bigger than I can even begin to tell you. And I signed this contract that I agreed to do what I was going to do. And I mean this too, I had probably, I would say trillions of beings clapping. And I say this with humility because I didn't understand what I do at that point. But I understand now, until we're willing to have really honest conversations about the inner space, I think that we need to understand that souls are always with us. Our ancestors are with us to help us. And we're all mediums. We actually all have this ability. I'm not unique. And I think that we need to tap into our ancestors in the galactics in order for us to really raise up into our vibrational integrities. And I feel like one of the messages I need to share is music is a way to help us do that. So be conscious of the music you listen to, because if it's anything derogatory, it becomes a loop in your brain. You don't even realize it's doing it. And I know people tell me that the thing that happens, a lot of people drive to my music because it puts them in a calmer state. And I love the stories about how children calm down when they listen to it. Parents, there's this one woman in Australia that wrote me a very beautiful experience after her picking up her kids at school, and just turning on my music put them into a calmer space. And these are the common threads that we need to understand, that vibrations are sometimes, that little bit can make a whole difference if we listen to positive music that are reinforcing to the soul's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like it's making a resurgence, with harmonic light language, drumming, some of the, I would even say star family language, rhythms, tones, some of the primordial, primitive, Aboriginal, indigenous, and beyond, off planet.
And I think the other part of it too is to make sure that we sing with our children. I think it's important to sing with our children. When we sing, the soul is free. And I think people need to understand that when you sing, like you don't have to be, a professionally trained musician, but sing along to songs you love, because it's an expression of vibration from your heart and soul.
Do you play an instrument as well?
I do. I play the piano. I play the cello a little bit, but my piano is my instrument. Yeah.
We've gotten like three questions here revolving around, are we going to hear anything? I wasn't going to ask
tonight. It's always funny because these sorts of things I'm asked a lot, and the reality is that it's just not the best function to sing on a live show like this, just because of the internet connections. And my piano is behind me. I have it there. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there.
Yeah, I see it.
It sort of is a hard thing to do live.
Yeah.
I have a lot of my music's available to listen to, so I would.
That was the next question. Are you on YouTube or similar under your name?
Yeah, so if you go my website, just because it's easier, I have it under Be Kindness, so BEE kindness.com. Mm-hmm. Or if you Google my name, Paul Luftenegger, there's only one of me as far as I know.
You never know.
Yeah,
there used to be only one Todd Medina, and then I got older, and there was some MMA fighter that came that did pretty good, I guess. People used to say, "Are you the same guy?" I'm like, no, I didn't know who he was.
That's awesome.
Now, I know with what you said earlier about your inability or sovereign right not to be engaging with those who don't take responsibility for their own energy, that if you're in a partnership, which you've told me, it must be a conscious partnership. Is that correct?
It is, big time. I think sovereignty is one of the most important things that I think we can do or talk about, the free will. I'm very much a proponent of talking about that too, because I think that no matter, even if we're in a partnership, we always have our sovereignty. Yeah. I think our relationship, I always talk about a priest as an example, because I know this energy really well. I remember the last time I went to a confession, I was probably about 17. And I remember, because I was a very spiritual kid. I used to go to mass. I used to do that stuff. And I was called to be a priest as a kid. And when I was going to become a priest, the message inside of me said, "Not this time," very clearly. And I have to tell you, I was sort of confused by that for a while. But the thing that I know to be true about sovereignty is that I love when I sort of understood that I no longer needed a priest to go to. I have me. We all have us. Our soul with God is the most important relationship we can have. In order to recharge our vessel, in order to recharge our spiritual signature, connecting to source in little bits throughout the day is very powerful and important. And I always say this in the morning, before you get out of bed, really take a moment to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I was asking about the partnership is because I wanted to get your perspective on the power of three. In other words,
Yeah.
in this time, in this transition we call ascension, the power of the Holy Triad, the power of two
Trinity.
people coming together in unconditional love,
Yep.
in a conscious union, and the third energy that it produces. Is this something that you recognize and see that's viable, interesting at the least? And is it a key component of what we've moved into in this quantum nonlinear space?
Well, absolutely, and I think that the Holy Trinity to me is this. Of course it's in all capacities, so in all ways. So yes, to divine relationships that way, partnerships. But I think it's just as important. Me with you right now, my soul is in honor of you right now. That's that namaste that flows in a figure eight between us. That infinity flows. I honor the universe in you because I know you honor the universe in me. And I love that because what that does is that God, actually source, flows to us when we're in this space of inner peace and honor with each other. No different than in our personal relationships with anyone. And then what's really cool, if we get together in groups with this energy, we actually have infinity signs flowing between all souls. Yeah. And God is very much a part of that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with that. I mean, that every single connection, be it for a moment, for an hour on a show, or, a longer period of time, and whatever depth of unification that love has achieved, is that seems to be superseding whatever was before, which was more of a selfish, a conditioned, selfish human mind dominating the spirit,
Yes, absolutely. One thing I feel like I meant to say a message right now for everybody listening, whenever this comes, even if it's on the replay. One of the things that they want me to talk about is that we need to be responsible about who we make famous. And I have to tell you, we are in a time where we need to start addressing that subject, because that platform is very, very powerful for our future. And I always like to say the future and the now have a big relationship, and our intention for the future. But I think that, I think what's happening is that I think that the baton is changing hands right now. And people like you that are conscious doing this space are becoming kind of the new, I would say actually sort of what new fame will be, which is integrous. And I think that we're in a very different time where you're going to start seeing a shift of what fame is. And fame for me in that way is where I think that a lot of people that I've met along the way are becoming famous for spiritual, I would say, integrity. And I've met a lot of people that are, in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
They're really not very. They're very egoic.
And, well, and having gone to some spiritual hubs, or at least I can, say for sure one, two. In my travels, in my nomadic hobo travels before I started to stabilize, there would be two communities, and one community would be made up of an energy, and the typical person was in the background doing the work, in solitude, in anonymity, and the other one was more visible, plastic, and I would say more masculine being imbalanced. That's very true. And I actually got Morgan and I deal a lot with the Soulogy consciousness, which has come to us as something like a golden child, like a product of our energies coming together. And it was about a week ago, and I was seeing some things. I don't surf a lot on Facebook, but there's some things happening in my field. Mm-hmm. And so the human side of me was like, yeah, I don't know if I like that. And so then I heard this voice come in and say, do you need credit? And I said, no. And they said, do you really, do you not? Are you sure? And I said, no, I don't need credit. And they said, well, that's not how it works. It reminds me of what you're saying right now. And I was basically told that what it operates on now is love and respect.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, I can live with that, because that's easy. You don't have to prove that to anybody. Just keep going out there and doing your thing.
Well, and the next layer, I feel like the next layer of things that are happening in the world are actually these integrity sort of circles that are happening. And it's really interesting. Like, I didn't understand this before I did music, but music's a very interesting learning tool to understand energy, because I always remember sort of first having people write me and tell me about my music. And I was always sort of like, I didn't know how to approach it. But at the same time, it's also really interesting. It's been very cool to watch how so many people have come together because of vibrational respect. And I think the next level, or the next thing coming, is where we as communities around the world are starting to come together. And for instance, I'm going to sing in Alicante, Spain in April. It's my second time being invited. But what's really interesting is that I'm bringing with me, I think there's probably about 7 or 8 people coming from North America that are, in my circle of, people that are in my direct circle that are coming with me. But what I love is it's sort of about 8 countries sort of coming together in a beautiful way. And these are all leaders of the new sort of spiritual energy of co-creation. And I love what's happening around the world is that we're building bridges of love, literally a manifest now. And I think the next layer of understanding what spiritual is kind of becoming, because it's evolving, is sort of where we are manifesting these wonderful relationships with people that help each other. Yeah. And that's what's sort of cool to see behind the scenes. And I wouldn't know this if I didn't know what's going on with music, because it's sort of how I've been sort of put into different pieces all around the world.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Because you are seeing evidence of these virtual relationships, or virtual reality based relationships
coming to life.
Is starting to physically pull people together.
Yeah. And it's really beautiful. There are so many good things going on in the world. Like, if anyone doesn't know that, know that. There are really good people that are uniting together to help everyone thrive.
Yeah. I bet you see a lot of different things. You travel a lot with what you do, right? Performing.
More, yes.
Yeah. And so you see a lot of different cultural slants and that type of thing. Are you seeing solid evidence or any evidence at all of I don't want to say the masses awakening, but do you see it when you go places? Can you see people are waking up? And
absolutely. And I think, of course, there's lots of stuff going on that's dramatic. But I see sort of what's happening is there's sort of like a divide, like in cellular, I think it's called mitosis, where it separates. What's happening is I just think that we're just in this sort of separation for a little while. But what's sort of happening in my mind's eye is that this side with good conscious energy is getting very big. And like a cancer, that it's almost like being starved. The other bit is being starved more and more as we all unite together with integrity,
Yeah. It's like there's so much light, the dark's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, and it's
whether it's in us or anywhere. Right?
God always reminds me, God has walked every day before us, so don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah, we talked about that on the first show this morning. The meme, it says that you've got everything, sign God.
Yeah, right.
You already have it, sign God, something like that. I was going to ask you. A lot of people look at someone like you, and they'll say, "Wow, he's got it." He's connected galactically, and he's connected with, mainstream and mainline in this incredible music and compositions and such. Do you go through times in the day or whatever, or periods where the energy hits you or something knocks you off balance, knocks you off your square?
Yeah.
And if so, because this is something you actually assist people with, but how do you handle that for yourself?
Well, I have to say, I will say, I don't like saying his name. I'll say DT. I think everybody can assess who that is. Um, I know that there's so many people sort of being triggered right now. And for me, I have my own, I'm incredibly sensitive, hypersensitive. And I think that actually, I now understand that as sort of a gift. It's not always easy to be sensitive because most people probably tuning in to this show are sensitive. So we get triggered. I get triggered sometimes and I have my bad days. Like, I mean, I'm very humble in saying that where I sort of get frustrated by the outside world at times. Let's just be real. Because it's brutal to see people suffering. It's just brutal. So when we get triggered, I think the big thing to remember is I live by this too shall pass. It's one of the big statements I say to myself. This too shall pass. And when that happens, I remember that there's nothing like a clean shower. Hop in the shower, wash away anything. Physical water is really powerful. Clean yourself. And really in the shower, do an energy clean too. Like let it all go in the shower. And then realize that you're a clean container. Yeah. The other thing that I love, and I'll tell you, one of my biggest tools that I used, and I love sharing this. I'm glad you brought it up. So I was shown right after my dad died by suicide that I needed to go inside with a vacuum and clean out any sludge of fear from, and I'm going to use the chakra points to begin with because it's a good point to start, but to go to God, go inside your crown and vacuum your crown and vacuum it from sludge. Any fear, any sludge or density that you don't want inside of you, let God take that from you. And vacuum out the crown, the third eye, the throat, the heart, the upper heart, the lower heart, and all the chakras, vacuum them. And let that all go to God. And then where you took out that sludge, put in the divine love of God. And when you do that, it will help your light quotient just illuminate so you can become more plasma-based.
Yeah.
And I live by that. So if you get into a density, go inside and literally vacuum it.
Yeah, very good. So let me ask you, if before we go out the door here, I want to ask you, if somebody came to you, there's a lot of people, a lot of practitioners that I've had come and shared space with us here. And many of them this year are talking about how so many new clients are coming in that are just waking up. What would your advice be to somebody who's just waking up saying, hey, I had a Kundalini experience, or they didn't even know what it was, described it to you, and you're like, this is what happened to you. What would your advice be to these folks who are going through what many of us went through, which was that self-doubt? Am I crazy? Why do I not fit in this job, in this relationship? And I'm hearing this voice that says, sell all your stuff and get an RV and just start traveling around. People following these inconceivable, irrational paths. But you know what I'm talking about. What would your advice be to someone? Because these energies are moving so fast and the information's coming in so quick now, rather than it was when many of us were going through it. What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, I would start with, and I know this is really cliche to say this, but I would close my eyes, first of all, and go inside my heart. A lot of people, just place your hands on your heart. I know that sounds really basic. I think God is really user-friendly. I think that we've dumbed down God way too much. And I think you need to start with the fact that you're not alone. I will say the thing that I swear by is do a life review. And this is a personal review. I always say this to people, go back to the first two cells that created you. One from your mother, one from your father. Realize that of all the choices that had to be made, every single one of them that had to be made for that particular little sperm and that particular little egg, for them to come together in that particular moment to make you, start with your miracle. That's you. And I think if you don't start with that, you can't really get anywhere, because you got to realize all the choices that had to happen for that. That's you. And that changed my life when I did that. And I think if you start with those two cells, you realize all the miracles that had to happen for you to be right here now. And you're still breathing. So remember that breath is the same breath of the baby that took its first breath. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, when you consider there's what 7, 8 million sperm,
Yeah.
you're one one out of that many. You won a hell of a race, or you're
And
really fast or something.
that built the life you've lived, like
Yeah,
literally. So the other thing too is I really swear by meditating on your DNA. I think meditating on your DNA, I always say to connect the both helixes and the bridge between them, the Jacob's ladder, I like to call it. Make sure you flood that with God's light.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
that
like that.
is a really big deal.
Yeah, no, I think that's because I'm a big, I say every day, human is the hero.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about the coming out thing, because for so long everybody was like, oh, it's time to step up. You got to step up. I think it's as simple, like you said, God's user friendly. All you got to do is come out,
Yeah.
stop hiding. It's not
We
about
have to start
stepping up
having
and
grown-up conversations. Like that's
yeah,
what's happening.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. What are your immediate plans, or is there anything coming up? You said you were going to Spain. Is there anything else you've got coming up? Or working
So my seventh album's coming out. This album is, I've realized this album is sort of an ascension space for me. And this particular album is called Seeds of Peace. So it's very much the intention of, it's sort of the higher note of vibrational understanding. But I want to just say that my body of work is actually an ascension guide. So if you go back, the 7 albums that I'm going to have out, the 7th being out on May the 12th, is sort of a full container package of helping someone from a pain density all the way up to an ascended vibration, which is going to be this album, which is an inner peace. Again, we're never going to have external peace in our life until we have inner peace.
Yeah.
So we have to go to the inner peace. So this next album is out on May the 12th, and it's sort of like, I would say actually a very different vibration. So I'm looking forward to it. It's sort of a different sort of way to meditate.
Well, I think it's also more of the quantum way to assist and facilitate in what you're describing that you do as an ascension guide. Because in the old paradigm, which may have ended as recently as October, November of last year, they're saying the yogi guru thing is gone.
Yeah.
And that's not to take anything away from it, but the instruction is gone. So going back to your point about being vibrational beings and that type of thing, all of this stuff is moving through that. It's not the words.
Yeah,
that's what I love about what you're saying, because
my team always says too, like, just to point on that, is that the only guru there is you. You're your own guru. And I always say, like, people have come to me actually and say, like, will you be my guru? Like, no, actually, you're your guru. And don't
exactly
give that to anyone. That's yours.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think, and I've met a lot of people in what I do. I've met people who don't even speak words in their in energy practitionership to their clients. It could be tones. It could be colors. It could be drums. It could be numbers. It could be light language. But what I'm getting at is this seems to be something that's coming to a head. And I'm a big believer in the music thing, because it's it is wordless. I mean, and everybody, and look, you've got an infinite library to choose from. Not to mention, like you said, we're all geniuses, and all we got to do is tap into it. We can make our own music, especially with this technology out there now, right?
It's amazing. And I was just reading even just today, like, the Egyptians, sound consciousness is a really big deal. Gregorian chant, and they used to sing in the pyramids. That's what I was reading today. And it's the way that it's structured. I always see the pyramids as 56 degrees. So it's north, south, east, west, and 56 degrees, which is 11s, by the way. So I see numbers. I always communicate with numbers. But I want to just say, with vibrational understanding, when we actually start vibrating and singing together too, there's something that happens where, and if you ever go to a chanting concert for like Snatum Kaur or someone like that, it's so powerful because everybody becomes a vibrational kind of beauty together. And something happens.
I think that's the tones, and that's a huge deal. That's a huge thing that we're remembering now, and I think you're right. And other people have mentioned that on this show. I've gone places, and somebody was just doing it the other day. Oh, I think it was what's his name, Jan Lemuri, who's on yesterday. And he sings in Chiron's
Yeah.
choir.
His show on dolphins with you was so
Mm,
cool. I watched it this morning, and
yeah,
I
he
have
was.
to tell you, that was amazing to go through
Yeah.
his activations of just
Yes.
the multisensory dolphin. Why
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. That in itself, and I participate in things obviously when I do this, and I do my own thing. And I've got a partner who's been doing this 20 years, but to spend, particularly yesterday with him, it was the mouth and this, whatever that's
Yeah,
called.
the crown.
Uh,
Yeah,
those two things really lit me up, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like I could see the cells in my on my mouth,
yeah.
around my mouth, start smiling. And I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy! How am I going to keep my composure?" Yeah. Well, this has been great. I would love to collaborate with you again and support anything that you're doing here at Soulogy. It's a platform for people like you. We have a very good network, 60,000 plus solid, engaged people, and then a lot of people that pop in and pop out in anonymity.
Well,
But
thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today, and I know that I've heard your name in many of the circles that I'm in, and I'm looking forward to supporting you and this community too. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So when you get ready to launch, you let me know. Send me a text or Morgan, and we'll put it through the network or have another show, and we'll hit you up again.
beautiful.
I'm sure we'll hit you up again soon. Best to you and your partner and your travels and everything that you're doing. Take care, brother.
Thank you, and you too, and love to everyone.
All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you for another successful day.